Kuzma at the 4. And I think that's a nice fit for the Lakers too, is that they're going to get a lot of LeBron and Kuzma at the 4 with this. One way or the other, this is going to be more Davis at the 5, which is phenomenal for the Lakers, and more LeBron and Kuzma at the 4, which may be even better for the Lakers because what it means is that they're now going to have a shooter out there. They're going to get to play someone who's a shooter. Now, whether that's an Alex Caruso, an Avery Bradley, a Quinn Cook, one of those guys is going to be out there more often, and that is going to do wonders for their spacing. I think that's going to be one of the biggest things here is if Davis plays the 5 and LeBron plays the 4, and or LeBron plays the 1 nominally, and Kuzma plays the 4, and you have Danny Green and a shooter out there, they're much harder to guard. When you were playing Cousins, Davis, LeBron, Kuzma, and Danny Green, the only guy there in the past few seasons who's been a really excellent shooter from beyond the arc would have been Green. And teams are not going to hesitate to just help off those other guys. We saw this a little bit with the Pelicans with Cousins and Davis there. The teams were more than happy to just move away from whoever was out there on the perimeter. This is going to make that harder to do. It's going to space the floor more. So I actually think this could have some kind of sneaky positives for the Lakers in terms of their offense and their spacing because Cousins and Davis, they just neither one is a good enough shooter to really scare defenses.
I mean, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but part of the reason why Anthony Davis was so miserable in New Orleans is the fact that he had to play center. So if you're the Lakers and you force Davis to play the 5 out of need and he's unhappy there, remember, he's not signed there long term. He could play out 1 year in LA and walk. I don't know where
Very
he'd
true.
sign, but he could end up being out of there. So I think if you're Frank Vogel and your slew of head coaches on your assistant staff and Lionel Hollins and Jason Kidd, I mean, they're going to have to be really creative in order to get LeBron minutes at the 4, Davis minutes at the 4, maybe in a pinch he'll play some 5, but he can't be their everyday center. He'll walk out.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see how that goes. But there was another story, Jason, that came out, and before we get to the Nets, I had to bring this up because this just caught my eye, and it was absolutely shocking to me. And I don't say that often that something just absolutely shocks me. I couldn't imagine it. But ESPN posted a story where they surveyed the rookies, Jason. They asked all of the rookies who they thought out of their fellow rookies was going to be the best NBA player. And naturally, Jason, you would assume that they are going to pick Zion Williamson. Number 1 pick, one of the most heralded rookies since LeBron James. I mean, one of these guys who most people think is a surefire all-star player. And Jason, of course, they picked Cam Reddish. I mean,
I
what
mean,
do you make of it, Jason?
I make it as a bunch of kids, late teens, early 20s, just being competitive. I mean, knowing that Zion was one of the more high profile draft picks in recent memory, I mean, if you're looking to, create a name for yourself in the NBA, you're really going to go on a survey and say, oh, Zion, yeah, he's better than all of us. No, you're going to want to pick the field. Some guys may have picked themselves. I just think it's a bunch of young kids being competitive. I really don't make too much of this story. I mean, when I saw you post it today and I clicked in and read it, and they said that they haven't correctly picked a rookie of the year as a class since 2007-8 with Kevin Durant. I mean, it's not like these kids know a lot. They're going to go out there and they're going to play. We don't know. Zion could end up being head and shoulders better than the rest of this draft class. Cam Reddish could end up being a bust. We won't know until the game starts. So all I make of this story is that these kids are competitive and they don't think Zion is going to be the Messiah that the media has painted him to be over the last year. I mean, they did say that he'll be in Rookie of the Year. I mean, these rookies love players from Duke because I think the last 6 years, draft pick from Duke was the favorite to win Rookie of the Year. But other than that, I mean, it's just kids being kids.
Yeah, what did you make though of the fact that, and this is something I was going to ask you. So they choose the rookie of the year to be Zion, but they say that they think that the best career would be Cam Reddish, which I thought was such a weird thing because as you noted, they're actually pretty awful at picking the rookie of the year. I mean, the ones that they've gotten right were ones that were really quite quite obvious. I mean, none of them were, the only one here that's like really they got 100% was Kevin Durant. But I mean, they've not had a great track record, and yet they think Cam Reddish will have the best career. So I mean, why do you think that they think he'll have a better career? And of all people, I thought Cam Reddish was such an interesting one because he slipped all the way to the 10th pick.
Well, I mean, he's got the NBA ready body. His game is tailor made for the modern day NBA. And I'll say two things about Zion Williamson. Everyone loves him. He's got a very charismatic personality. He's a load. But if he doesn't develop a consistent jump shot, and B, gets in better game shape than he was at Duke, he's not going to have the career that everyone's making him out to be. And then you have this conundrum. What if he drops 20 pounds to, be able to play 30 minutes a game in the NBA, and then he's not the same player because he needs that weight to flourish? I mean, I'll make a baseball comparison, right? CC Sabathia, pitcher for the New York Yankees, okay? He's always been a big dude. He lost weight, and his fastball was ineffective. I mean, he did not pitch with as much velocity because he was smaller. What if Zion loses weight to, be able to play in the NBA and not be winded, and then he's not the same athletically? Part of his gifts are his size. So if he loses some of that, he may not be as effective. So we won't know until the games start playing. That's why I think this rookie survey is stupid. We don't know until the games start.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was just really surprised. I mean, I think even more than the fact that they didn't choose Zion was that they didn't even go with a guy like John Morant, that they went with Cam Reddish, who I think is really interesting. And I mean, I wonder, I mean, obviously this was a guy who was the number 3 recruit, 5-star guy, someone who a lot of people thought was going to be excellent. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he had a great career. I would be shocked if he was the best player out of this draft. I don't see his ceiling that high. But
this is what happened. The Hawks had 18 first-round picks, and they all pulled together and said, let's rig the survey. Cam's going to have the best career. And we're sitting here, two bozos on a podcast, breaking it down like it's just a survey. If they pick Zion, will we even brought it up on tonight's show?
No, but I mean, I think the thing that's so surprising is, I mean, it wasn't like he got, everyone got, 5% or something, and he happened to get 7. I mean, he got 20% of the vote, which is, when you consider how many rookies there are going to be, I mean, that's a fairly good number of votes. I mean, you got what, 60 rookies, a little more, maybe 80. I don't know how many they're going to, how much the total is, but I mean, that means like a pretty good chunk of these guys chose Cam Reddish, which is just interesting. And I mean, I think it's worth analyzing in the sense that it gives you an idea that these guys think, they really think that he's going to be good. And you made the example of, okay, well, they're not very good at picking rookie of the year, right, Jason? Can I read who they said would be the best career over these? Because this is a lot more impressive. 2007, Kevin Durant. Let's call that a win. 2009, Blake Griffin. Think that's a pretty solid choice. 2010, John Wall. Pretty solid. 2012, Anthony Davis. Pretty good pick. 2013, Oladipo and Olynyk. One of those is pretty good. One, not so much. 2014, Jabari Parker. We'll call that one a miss. 2015, Jahlil Okafor. Not too great. 2016, Ingram. That's probably not looking too great. So there were a couple misses in there. But then we have Alonzo Ball and Jason Tatum. I think Jason Tatum's very much alive. Wendell Carter, which I'm not as high on. But I mean, if you look at that way of it, Jason, I mean, the last few years have not been as kind, but they've done all right picking, the best players out of there. I mean, I'm interested to see how this plays out. That's all I'm saying. I think it's interesting that so many of the young players see him as that kind of guy. So I don't know. I'm not saying that it shows anything necessarily, but I just thought it was very interesting to hear the rookies feel that way. And I think if you're a Hawks fan, more than anything, this has got to make you feel pretty excited because, I mean, it shows you that the other players really respect him and they think that he's going to be good. And if you're a Hawks fan, that's got to be music to your ears when you have Trae Young, John Collins, and now Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, who also got some votes for best career.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun rookie class. And then RJ Barrett's getting absolutely no love. He may end up being the first All-Star out of this class, playing on a bad Knicks team. He's going to get a lot of chances to shine. So It's definitely an interesting rookie class, one of the
Hmm.
more interesting we've had in recent years. But because Zion Williamson is such a high profile player without having stepped on an NBA floor, there's a lot of pressure on him. Cam Reddish doesn't have as much pressure.
Yeah.
RJ Barrett has to save the Knicks franchise. John Morant's going into a situation where he's going to be counted on. This is going to be a very interesting rookie class. And, I hope we get to revisit this, 5 years down the line, see who's still in the league, who's not, who's an all star. And, if Zion ends up fizzling out, I mean, there will be a small group of people that aren't surprised because of the way his game is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And speaking of this and some guys who can fizzle out, I want to. Do you want to hit our best bets first, or do you want to get to Nets news of the week? Because I have to admit I'm
Well,
pretty excited to hear your Nets news of the week. So I'll let you
all right.
decide.
All right. Well, let's make the people wait then, because again, I'm trying to just not be a Nets fan homer boy this summer, because this has been the best summer of my life as a Nets fan. So we'll save the dessert for the end. Let's do the best bets.
All right. So this week we have, a best bet that I think it's a sure sign that you are a gambling addict if you actually bet on this. Uh,
I will.
However, the Most Improved Player Award, obviously they award it every year, and it's an award this year that there are some pretty good bets on there. You've listed a few, Jason. I have one or two I really, really like out of this. So I'll give mine, but let's list a few of the names, Jason. Who are a few of the names that kind of sprang to your mind, and then maybe give me your best out of that group?
So I went with a lot of. We're doing the favorites first, right? So I went with a lot of guys that are, on contending teams, but have a chance to really show themselves. Because if you look at last year's voting, Pascal Siakam came out of nowhere, helped the Raptors win a championship. He was a virtual shoe-in to win that award. I know D'Angelo Russell was garnering a lot of interest in that, but with Toronto's postseason success and everything Pascal Siakam has become, he's a shoe-in. So I went with that theme. So my first name is Jaylen Brown. With Kyrie Irving out of Boston, with Terry Rozier out of Boston, there's a lot less alphas on that team. I know you have Kemba there, but he's a team guy. Tatum already made that jump, and then you have Gordon Hayward, and now, with Horford gone, there's really not too much scoring. I think Jaylen Brown, if he goes out and exceeds expectations, you could see the Celtics finish top four in the East, and Brown could very well be a big factor in that. So I think Brown would be a favorite. Another name, which we already talked about, is Kyle Kuzma. If he's the number 3 scoring option on the Lakers and they get the number 2 seed in the West, lose to the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, and Kuzma maybe gets his first All-Star selection, I mean, he's a guy that's going to be in line for a huge payday. He's got the tools. He's got two very, you better get in line or we're going to, stuff you in a locker teammates in Anthony Davis and LeBron James. So, I think Kuzma's in line for a huge year. Another interesting name here is Montrezl Harrell. I know he was in the running for sixth man playing with Lou Will, but, with the fact that the Clippers didn't really go out and get a capable starting five to go along with their massive free agent haul and getting Paul George in a trade. So I think Harrell playing big minutes at the five, he could be. And then my final name is a name that has been talked about for the last 2 years pretty much religiously, and that's Lonzo Ball. Drew Holiday's on the back nine of his prime. Ball's going to a new city, might be reinvigorated by the fact that the Lakers gave up on him. He's already on his second team. He's going into his third year. And he's got a chance to play with Zion Williamson and a lot of these vets that they have. And he's got Ingram and Hart there. But Ball could be in line for a big year. So those are my top four that I think would be the smartest plays here if you're going to bet on most improved.
Yeah. So I've got three guys, and one of them actually just kind of occurred to me, and somehow I hadn't thought of him before, but you had just
Why?
kind of
Because you
triggered
were
it for
late
me.
to the podcast, Ben, and that's why you're late making show notes? Okay, good. All right, keep going.
Well, the guy who came to mind for me probably first, but I don't know if I would bet him is Lauri Markkanen. I think Lauri Markkanen has a chance. He'd have to improve a lot, but I think he has a good chance just for health reasons. Like he wasn't healthy last year. He just didn't seem totally comfortable. So I think this year he could have a much, much better year. But the two guys who I really like for this award, Jason, and if I'm a betting man, I'm going on one of these two. The first is Malcolm Brogdon. He's headed to the Pacers. The opportunity there is just tremendous here. There's a very good chance, I would say a near lock at this point, that he's going to be the starting point guard for a Pacers team that until Oladipo returns is going to be starved for an offensive creator. They lost Bojan Bogdanovic, And obviously Oladipo will not be back until well into the season.